She ruined my wedding dress and said, "You'll never look good anyway," then laughed while recording my shock, parading the shredded lace to our guests and her followers, and insisting it was a harmless prank as I stood humiliated, crying in my veil. Since we were kids, Megan treated me like set dressing for her little shows. She'd hide my backpack before school to film my panic, then giggle when I missed the bus. In middle school, she told the entire grade I'd peed myself at camp. In college, she borrowed my sweaters for parties and returned them wine-stained, shrugging, "Dry clean it, Anna. It's not that deep. I'm 27 now, and I finally saved for my dream gown. Satin, cathedral train, hand beating that winked in warm light. I kept it at Mom's in Denver because it felt safer there." A week before the final fitting, I opened the closet. Empty hanger, ghost of a dress. Mom looked away. Megan took it for a shoot. "Don't overreact." When I called, Megan laughed. "Relax. A day or two. I'll clean it. This will crush on Insta." 2 days later, her sneaks dropped. My train dragging over wet rock, hem black, beadwork torn. I cried. She said, "It's just a dress." At my own bridal shower, she went live, grabbed the lace, ripped it, shoved the camera at my face and said, "You'll never look good anyway." I stood in my veil, humiliated, while she laughed. After the prank, I stopped crying and started counting stitches. My Boulder seamstress, Mrs. Quinn, thin as a pencil, hands that remembered every pin prick, listened without interruption, then said, "If they keep yanking you by the dress, sew a spine into it." We recut my anger into pattern pieces. We took the waist in to my exact measure, no forgiveness. Rebuilt the cups so they locked to my shape alone. Shortened and engineered the train. Not the sprawling kind that begs for epic shots, but a sleek, manageable sweep with hidden loops sized to my fingers. Then we added micro-details, tiny anchor stitches, near-invisible embroidery, hidden stays that you couldn't remove without damaging the fabric. In other words, perfect for the bride, useless for the content predator. "It isn't revenge," I said. "Proper tailoring is revenge when it's precise," Mrs. Quinn replied, snapping the last hook. A week later, I casually mentioned a Fort Collins charity ball within earshot of Megan. She flared like a match. "Crowd's gonna be insane. Your gown will kill there. I'll borrow it a couple hours, cool?" I shrugged. "It's just a dress." On the day, she stormed into Mom's living room like a host arriving on set. Phone on tripod, ring light in her tote, smile calibrated to "We'll make magic." She unzipped the garment bag and paused for half a second. The dress seemed to look back at her, calm, unafraid. "Don't pout," she sang. "I'll be careful." She went to the bedroom to change. A minute later came that sound. The dry, stubborn RRP when a zipper refuses to budge. Then a sharper, "Ugh." Another RRP. "Anna." I stepped in. She was bent toward the mirror, hauling the zipper up with both hands like she was escaping a shell. The bodice torqued sideways. The hem hung at a weird angle, as if the gown had suddenly lost its gravity. "You sabotaged this," she hissed. "You ruined our asset." "I tailored it," I said evenly. "To me. Weird, right?" Her eyes snapped to mine. "Then pay for a new gown. Now." "It's just a dress," I tossed back, and watched her taste her own line. Bitter. She went to the ball in an old cocktail dress. Of course she posted casual chic and tossed on 3 filters, but the algorithm didn't bite. Her lives that night felt flat. No drama. No awe, just the usual chin tilt and hollow bot comments. When she came back, she flung the garment bag onto the couch. I picked it up, checked every stitch. The dress was intact and serene, the way I felt. We married in a small stone church where the light pours through narrow windows like warm honey. I walked down the aisle in a gown that held to me like second skin, no longer a flag for anyone's vanity. Outside, the photographer, a lean guy with dark curls, gave me a wink that wasn't playful. "Did you already grab the files?" he asked. "What files?" "Your sister came this morning. Said you'd authorized creative oversight. Asked me to delete, unflattering angles, and export the clean straight to her drive. My no came out so quiet he leaned in. She has no right, I said, cold spreading through my chest. No one does except me. I didn't delete, he admitted with a long exhale. She acted like a producer, but something felt off. That was the moment it truly hit. Megan hadn't been stealing objects. She'd been reposting me, trying on my choices, my voice, my right to decide what of me is good and what should be cleaned up. Dress, photos, my dad's toast, anything with meaning in her eyes was just material for an edit. I scrubbed back through the years like a timeline. The camp story, how she blasted a lie about me peeing myself through hallways until it became folklore. College sweaters cropped into frames with other people's wine glasses. The daily micro-corrections of reality she called content. She cut me from fragments, and when I tried to insert my own lower third, she hit delete scene. We took a short trip after the wedding, pine on the air, hot coffee and travel mugs. Even on the trail, phone service blinked just enough to deliver Mom's text. Megan's upset she wasn't tagged in the official photos. Says you're ungrateful. I looked at the screen and felt neither anger nor shame. Just firmness. You okay? My husband asked. Yeah, I said. Just noticed the coordinates shifted. She's not near my camera anymore. When we got back, I gathered documents. The photographer's contract, Mrs. Quinn's invoices, screenshots of Megan's lives, and those sneaks where my train sluiced through muck. I wasn't planning a comment section brawl. I was planning access control. I didn't need to prove I existed. I needed to shut the door that kept dragging me on stage without consent. Megan texted first. You're twisting this. I helped. You filmed, I replied. And now the camera goes on a tripod. What? Read. Any use of my likeness requires written consent. Wedding photos and video. Official accounts only. No edits by you. And the dress is out of your reach. You're ridiculous. I'm a bride who stopped being funny. She sent a little laugh on voice note, the influencer chuckle like I was overacting. But it rang hollow. For the first time, her hands couldn't reach my material. For the first time, the editing bay was mine. That evening, the photographer messaged, I'll deliver all raws to you. Also, your sister came by again. I showed her the contract with your signature. She said she'd handle it another way. Thanks, I wrote back. Now I know exactly what her other way looks like. I wasn't thinking about the dress anymore. I could feel the outline of something else, my name, and someone was tugging to try it on. So I slipped off the ring of daily dread, set a notebook beside me, and began a plan. Not a post for her. An instruction manual for me. First line was simple. Tailor the boundaries to my body. Tight enough that a foreign zipper won't rise even a centimeter. When I walked into the studio 2 weeks later, the first thing I noticed wasn't the missing photos. It was the silence. The soft hum of computers had stopped, and the photographer's assistant wouldn't meet my eyes. On the preview monitor, my getting ready folder had vanished. Instead, there was a new one, Megan's mocks. Inside, someone had duplicated my wedding album layout but swapped my face in half the shots. Megan's grin stared back from my veil, my bouquet, my frame. I could see where she'd used face-swapping filters, bad edges, weird lighting, but the captions were new. A dream day for both sisters. Whiteheart #Animark, 2025 #Dylan and Meg. I called her on speaker. Megan, what the hell is this? She giggled like she was already live. Oh my God. You found it. I'm just mocking up ideas for my day. Chill, it's just for fun. Don't be so sensitive. You're using my photographer. Well, technically our photographer. We share everything. Remember? When I hung up, Mrs. Quinn texted me 3 words. She was here, at my parents' house in Denver. It felt like stepping into a crime scene built from mood boards. My mother's hallway, once covered in my engagement photos, was now wallpapered with Megan's revisions. New quotes from florists, alternate cake sketches, printouts of my dress from every angle, even screenshots from my private Pinterest board, the password-protected one. Mom fussed around with tea, pretending not to see my expression. Oh, don't get upset. She's just creative, honey. She wants something beautiful, too. She took my vendors. She's copying my site, I said. It's sharing, not stealing, Mom murmured, as if the words were gospel. My father, Robert, stayed quiet, reading glasses in one hand, the same haunted stillness he wore during any family argument. He'd already learned that silence was safer around Megan. Back home, Mark and I opened my wedding website to upload the final thank you notes. The page loaded slowly, then glitched. A new banner flashed at the top. A double celebration. Anna and Mark, and Megan and Dylan. Below it were merged event photos, some doctored so poorly that Megan's head literally floated above my shoulders. What the hell? Mark leaned over my shoulder. She'd also hijacked the hashtag. Hashtag AnnaMark2025, the one our friends and vendors had used, was now overrun with Megan's reels. Venue scouting with Dylan. Saying yes to the dress again. Sister goals ring kiss Mark. 52,000 followers thought they were watching me plan my life. They were liking her content in my dress. I sat staring at the screen while Mark scrolled, jaw tightening. She's running your brand, he said finally. She's literally turning your wedding into her portfolio. Mom texted that night. Megan says you're being possessive. Be kind. She just wants to celebrate. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to Mark and typed. We're locking everything down tomorrow. Passwords changed. Two-factor authentication. Private accounts, limited access to vendors. Every file backed up, every receipt saved. When I called a paralegal friend, someone I used to work with in PR, she didn't even laugh. This is textbook impersonation, she said. Start with a cease and desist. Save all digital evidence, screenshots, any proof of emotional or financial damage. Emotional damage? I asked. You'll need it if it escalates, she said. And trust me, it will. The next morning, I got a ping from Mrs. Quinn again. A link. I opened it and felt my pulse spike. Megan was live from the seamstress's shop, standing where I'd once stood for fittings. Back where it all started, she chirped. Sketching our next collab. Can't wait to show you guys our new concept. She panned the camera over Mrs. Quinn's sketchpad. The same original design we'd worked on for months. In the comments, hearts and fire emojis poured in. Obsessed with the sisters' aesthetic. Can't wait for the twin weddings. Team Megan. I called Mrs. Quinn. Her voice was tight. She said she was doing a documentary. I didn't know she was streaming. It's okay, I managed, though it wasn't. Did she touch the sketches? I've locked them in the cabinet now. I'm sorry, Anna. That was the first time I felt genuine fear. Not anger, not humiliation. Fear. Because this wasn't about attention anymore. It was about authorship. Megan wasn't stealing things. She was replacing me with her version of me. She was rewriting my day, my voice, my face, pixel by pixel. And every like on her feed was another small vote against my reality. Mark saw it too. She's not competing, he said. She's cloning you. That night, we sat side by side, watching her follower count climb while mine stalled. I scrolled through her latest post, captioned, "When your sister inspires, you're forever dizzy," and felt the strange, metallic quiet that happens before something breaks. 4 years. I'd been the supporting role in her highlight reel. But now she was taking the headline, my name, my narrative, my future. It wasn't sister drama anymore. It was identity theft for clout. And I was done being the content. It started with an email from the venue in Longmont at 2:11 a.m. Unusual activity. Please call. The security manager met us in a back office that smelled like old coffee and Windex. He slid over a tablet. Grainy footage, service door, midnight. Megan in a white hoodie with a guy I didn't recognize. Both of them crouched by the lock. He had a roll of tools. She had her phone aimed like a director. When the camera's infrared washed her face pale, she smiled into it. She didn't get in, he said. A staffer came down the hall and they bailed. But I'll need a decision on police. Mom begged me in the parking lot, hands gripping my forearms. Let it go. Please. She's spiraling. Dad didn't touch me. He just opened his briefcase on the trunk and set down a blue folder. Inside were thin, careful printouts. A school complaint at 16 for bullying a freshman. Phrases like pattern, coercion, humiliation on social media. A note from a therapist at 19. Strongly recommends treatment. A neighbor's email about a stolen credit card. Then spreadsheets, dad's neat accountant columns. Tiny withdrawals from mom's accounts. $50, $80, $120. Never enough to trip alarms, but over 5 years it totaled $19,000. At the back, photocopies of 4 credit cards I didn't recognize, my name, my old address, different banks. I looked up at Dad. You knew. He took his glasses off. I suspected. Your mother didn't want to see the pattern. I thought if I tracked it, I could stop it before it hurt you. It already did, I said quietly, and watched Mom's face fold. That afternoon Megan posted a glossy 6-minute video. Soft piano, washed lunchroom light, an intro card in serif type. My truth. She cried without smudging her eyeliner and said I'd sabotaged her engagement. That Dylan was emotionally abusive. That my wedding triggered her trauma. The comments bloomed like mold. We love you, Queen. Stay strong. I knew she was jealous. We traced the spikes. Mark pulled the analytics while I screen captured. New accounts with no posts, all created within the hour, all cycling the same emoji strings. The engagement was padded with bots and paid likes. We filed takedowns. I cited impersonation, defamation, unauthorized use of my likeness. A paralegal friend drafted 2 cease and desists, one for the social platforms, one addressed to Megan by certified mail. We logged the click farm patterns, timestamps, IP hints, identical typos. I wasn't trying to win comments. I was building a record. The next day she barged into my office with a cameraman like she was invading a reality show reunion. We're doing a live reconciliation, she announced, already swiping to go live. The cameraman panned across my coworkers. Legal pads midair, faces blurred with alarm. Turn it off, I said, not moving. When she kept filming, our building security appeared so fast I wondered if someone had a panic button. No filming in tenant spaces without permission, the guard recited. They escorted her out while she shouted to the stream. See? Silenced. The comments roared. The algorithm feasted. Dylan called Mark that night from a parking lot. I'm trying to leave, he said, voice shredded. He and Megan had fought after the live. He didn't want to be content anymore. He said she'd sent him 300 messages in 90 minutes. Love bombs, threats, then the lullaby of catastrophic martyrdom. I'll die without you. He was scared. We told him to go to his brother's place, screenshot everything, and block her. He said he would. The next morning, Megan posted from an ER bed, for taped to her arm like a prop, whisper crying about being pushed too far. The caption, a message to my haters. You win. Her followers clutched their pearls. But the hospital called my mother, who called me, voice clipped to bone. A nurse overheard her laughing about calculating the dose for maximum sympathy, non-lethal, duh. The mask slipped, and for once it didn't glide back on. The hospital social worker flagged the account for dangerous behavior. The attending physician put a psychiatric consult in her chart. And, somewhere inside the machine, the algorithm hiccuped. Her video's comments thinned when the platform throttled it for self-harm implications. Mom texted, I can't defend this. Dad wrote, I'll drive with you to file the report. We sat in a fluorescent-lit room at the sheriff's office with a detective who had seen too many family dramas curdle into felonies. I laid out the folder, venue footage, the lockpick screen grabs, the spreadsheet of withdrawals, the cards in my name. We handed over copies of our cease and desist, the analytics on her bot surges, the hospital contact. The detective was quiet for a long time. This is a lot, he said finally. You did good work preserving it. Here's what we can do now. Trespass warning to start. Report for attempted unlawful entry at the venue. I'll refer the financials to fraud. For the online impersonation, keep sending takedowns, we'll document. If she violates the trespass or escalates, we'll consider a protective order. Mom started to cry then, hands clenched in her lap, the sound small and embarrassed. The detective passed a box of tissues like he'd done it 100 times. Outside, the sky felt hard and colorless. Mark squeezed my hand. "We're okay," he said. It wasn't a promise so much as a checkpoint. That night, my phone lit up with messages from people I hadn't spoken to in months. College friends, a cousin I only saw at funerals. They were forwarding Megan's new smear. A stitched montage of my supposed cruelty, intercut with childhood photos she took from Mom's albums. But woven between the comments were others, real ones, questioning the inconsistencies, linking to our cease and desist, pointing out the bots. The tide didn't turn exactly. Stuttered. Megan called me at 1:03 a.m. from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was sweet poison. "You made me do this, but I forgive you. Let's monetize the redemption arc sisterhood sells." I deleted the voicemail and backed up the deletion. Then I opened my notebook and drew 2 columns. Harm on the left, proof on the right. Beneath them I added a third, boundaries with consequences. The page looked like a quiet battlefield. The next morning, the venue emailed again. They'd issued the trespass notice. Any attempt to enter, and they'd call the police. Mrs. Quinn texted a photo of her lockbox, a tired thumbs up. The photographer sent over the final gallery with a new password protocol and the metadata logs attached. Piece by piece, I felt the edges of my life click back into place. Not all the way, not yet, but the bolts were turning. And as the machine of Megan's smears rattled on, bots sputtering, sympathy decaying, I held onto a single, cooling thought. One mask slipping is a beginning. The next time, it might fall. The detectives didn't kick down doors. They rang the bell on a Wednesday and asked for Megan by her legal name. It turned out the folder Dad built was a spine. They threaded a decade of petty thefts, forged signatures, and identity drift onto it like vertebrae. Bank statements, vendor impersonations, those small pulls that added up to $19,000. The attempted break-in at the venue. 4 cards in my name, activated and tested with $1 subscriptions and trial boxes. Enough for a warrant. They arrested her at my parents' house. Mom screamed that I was jealous, that I'd weaponized the system against family. I didn't answer. Jealousy is loud. Truth is patient. Megan, cuffed and pouting, scanned for a lens that wasn't there, then tried to bargain with the detective as if she were negotiating brand deliverables. "I can do a restorative justice series. 12 parts." He read her rights. The camera didn't save her. County held her on bond. In the quiet that followed, our vendors, who'd spent months dodging her producer notes, formed a little union. Code words for pickups. Photo IDs required on every delivery. 2-factor authentication on all calendars. The florist added passphrase to her order slips. The DJ created a safe list for requests. When someone called pretending to be me, they had to answer a specific, absurd question Mark invented. What was the dog on our ring dish? It was a corgi wearing a crown. Only 3 people on Earth knew that. Mom, instead of exhaling, pivoted to sabotage. She bought a burner phone and started calling relatives and friends to cancel due to tragedy. Her voice dipped in solemn performance. A vendor forwarded me a voicemail of her whispering, "Out of respect for our family emergency, please do not attend." Another day, Dad forwarded a text he'd intercepted. Mom offering an acquaintance $3,500 to disrupt the ceremony so we can reset and heal. The word heal did a cruel pirouette in my brain. Dad made choices fast for once. He filed for a temporary restraining order on my behalf, added himself as a protected person, and hired extra security for the venue. 2 off-duty officers in suits and earpieces who looked like they could detect trouble from a thought. He stood in the kitchen with his hands on the counter, eyes wet but steady. "I'm sorry I let it drift this far," he said. I believed him. The day before the wedding, the DA called. "We're offering a plea. 1-count felony identity theft. 1-count misdemeanor attempted unlawful entry, restitution, mental health conditions." I wrote it down not because the numbers would make me happy, but because facts are handrails. 14 months in county with suspended time if she completed treatment. 3 years probation. Restitution to me and my mother, yes, even Mom, who was still calling it misunderstanding. a permanent no-contact order that included digital contact. An odd mercy. No more tagged posts. No more accidental DMs. No more bots bearing my name. On the morning of our wedding, the sky over Longmont was the precise blue you get in childhood drawings. Security swept the venue at dawn. By 9, the planner texted a photo that stopped my breath. By the service door, someone had propped a wigged mannequin in a white dress, paper note pinned to its chest. Wish I could be there. The handwriting was a child's copy of cursive. The officers bagged it like evidence. I looked at the image once, then told my phone, delete. The world did not end. The flowers still smelled like lemons and green stems. I walked with my father. We paused at the doorway where light cut the aisle into bright and dim stripes. Ready? He asked. His voice broke on the second syllable. I threaded my arm through his. We've been ready, I said, and meant it. There was a moment during vows, a tiny chaos, when someone's phone alarm blared with the default sonar ping. The room did that instinctive freeze, all heads pivoting like birds. Then the owner, my college friend Theo, flushed scarlet and slapped it off. Someone snorted. Laughter loosened the ceiling. The tension cracked, spilled out, and ran away. We finished our vows under a ripple of smiles, the kind that make photos shine without filters. At the toast, Dylan stood. The security detail shifted, then eased back. He held his glass but didn't drink. I owe you all an apology, he said, voice shaking and strong at once. I participated in a story that hurt people. I'm leaving the state next week for school. I'm starting over. He looked at me and Mark. I'm sorry. It wasn't a hero speech. It was good because it was small and exact. We clapped, not because he redeemed anyone, but because he named a door and walked through it. The next morning, the DA confirmed what we already suspected. Megan signed the plea. 14 months in county, with credit for time served and the usual carve-outs if she completed mandatory therapy. 3 years probation. Restitution. $19,000 to my mother, $6,800 to me and our vendors, plus court costs. A permanent no-contact order that covered everything: calls, texts, emails, tags, DMs, hashtags, burner accounts, the works. The paper used words like, in perpetuity. The world uses words like, finally. Mom didn't call. Dad sent a photo of the backyard. The rental chairs empty, sunlight falling through maple leaves, the corgi figurine on our ring dish catching a dot of gold. It's quiet, he wrote. So was my head. The static that had been humming for months faded until it was only silence. The good kind. We ate leftover cake for breakfast. I took off my shoes and stood barefoot on our kitchen tile, the cold a clean line between now and then. Mark squeezed my hand and didn't say anything at all. Outside, the flowers on our porch sagged in the heat, and still, somehow, they bloomed. Therapy didn't hand me a miracle. It handed me language. The first session, my counselor drew a triangle. Enabler, aggressor, appeaser. You've been trained to solve everyone's anxiety by absorbing it, she said. That isn't kindness. That's erasure. We named what the last decade had blurred: long-term invalidation, learned helplessness, Mom's mantra of it's just her personality, and my own reflex to narrate pain as a funny story so it would hurt less. Homework wasn't journaling about Megan. It was practicing sentences that ended with a period. No, that doesn't work for me. I'm leaving this conversation now. Tiny lines that, repeated, formed a fence. Dad filed for divorce 2 months after the plea. He started a codependency group at the community center and began working late less, cooking more. He texted me recipes like postcards from a country he'd never visited before. Did you know carrots soften faster if you salt them first? We had dinner on Tuesdays without turning it into a strategy meeting. He didn't apologize for 30 years in one speech. He apologized by doing the dishes. Mom started treatment later, separately. I got 1 letter, 4 pages of her looping script. No, but you too. No spiritual riddles. Just, I was wrong. And I am working on seeing what is in front of me. I cried for an hour and then, because feelings aren't contracts, I put the letter in a folder labeled Keep. I didn't run back into the fire to prove I could stand heat. We set our contact to once a month, public place, daytime. Boundaries with timestamps. Work noticed what months of chaos had made obvious. I don't rattle. When a client threatened to pull a project unless we went viral by Friday, I asked for the numbers, the audience, the outcome, calm, precise, non-performative, and we kept the account. My boss handed me a lead, then another. Pay followed. So did quiet respect. Fewer, can you stay late for vibes? More, you've got this. Send the brief. Mark and I moved to a bright two-bed with no ghosts and too much sun. We bought a dining table that didn't wobble and chairs that didn't come in a set of mismatched Craigslist nostalgia. At night we learned the sounds of the building. The neighbor's dog's soft bark, the elevator's sigh, the upstairs toddler's midnight footrace. We hung one photo per wall and stopped pretending our home had to explain us to anyone. The dress, the one that survived rocks, needles, and scandals, didn't go into a glass box. I donated it to a nonprofit that outfits low-income brides. A week later, I got a thank you email with a blurry picture of a woman in a park under cottonwood trees. My old train had been shortened again, my microstitches still holding. She looked like she could exhale. Harm converted into help. Fits like that. Restitution checks began to arrive, stubby and clinical. I signed the backs and forwarded them to a fraud victims fund. It wasn't sainthood. It was accounting. Money forced out of a bad story didn't need to live in my house. Friends stitched life back together the way good tailors do. Small, exact, invisible from the outside. Tuesday soups. Thursday you up? Memes. Saturday plant swaps where nobody said the word journey. My mother-in-law taught me her enchiladas recipe over a speakerphone. No, baby, more cumin. No, more than that. We forgot to take pictures and remembered to eat. Dylan sent a postcard from a campus 2 states away. He'd cut his hair and his handle. He wrote, "Thank you for telling me to screenshot everything." A counselor said that's what got me to the right help. On the back, a rectangle of sky. People are more than the worst rooms they enter. He proved it. On our first anniversary, I scrolled through my phone and deleted the last photos of Megan. Not from rage, from acceptance. I don't have to curate my grief to make it palatable. I don't have to keep placeholders because a story feels unresolved. We are not a cliffhanger. We are a closed tab. The no-contact order stayed in place. The bots moved on, hungry for fresh catastrophe. The algorithm forgot my name, the way a wave forgets a footprint. Blessed amnesia. When strangers messaged to ask for my side, I pasted the same sentence each time. Legal orders prevent me from discussing this. Wishing you well. Then I muted them. I learned that quiet isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of choice. Family turned out to be the people who honor fences instead of jumping them for sport. Mark, who stands at my shoulder without performing it. Robert, who shows up Tuesdays with carrots. Sophie from work, who brings me her old paperbacks and never asks why I underline the sentences about rest. The circle is smaller now. It also fits. One afternoon I took my sketchbook to the kitchen table and drew a dress that didn't need a train at all. Just clean lines, good fabric, hidden seams that hold. I wrote measurements in the margins like notes to a future self. Waist, exact. Hem, even ease enough to breathe. The design wasn't about revenge or survival. It was about structure, how to carry a day without spilling. When the mail came, there was a thin envelope from the court. I opened it slowly. A stamped copy of the permanent order, embossed like a quiet seal. No contact in any form, no tagging, no proxies, no cameras pointed through the keyhole of my life. I slipped it into the keep folder beside Mom's letter. 2 sheets of paper with opposite gravities. One a boundary, the other a beginning. That night we ate on the balcony. The city hummed below, indifferent and kind. Somewhere a siren climbed and fell. Somewhere a door shut softly. Mark asked what I wanted to do this weekend. I told him I wanted to buy linen napkins and not save them for company. We laughed at how old that sounded and how right. I put down my phone. The screen went black, and for the first time in a very long time, it felt like a curtain closing on a show I didn't audition for. I turned the page in my sketchbook and made the simplest mark I know. A straight line, steady, ordinary mine.